With students, they're not as engaged as they could be. Certainly with girls, they're not as engaged as they could be. Certainly in the physical sciences. When I did this report, there was a depressing downward slide as you went from maths to chemistry, and physics was something like 90-10. And that hadn't changed over a 4 or 5 year period. The trend was absolutely flat. So I think there is a lot of work to be done in trying to explore why science is unpopular. I think also there is an emphasis too much on the curriculum and ticking boxes. And I get the feeling the way science is taught at schools is that all the answers are already known. And therefore there's no room for exploration or curiosity.
In response to this growing dissatisfaction with science education, Haggerston School in Hackney is one of 76 schools in England and Wales currently piloting a new GCSE. Because their science labs are being rebuilt, they're having to teach genetics in the pottery room, applied science in the art studio, and earth science in a hut. They're coping very well, partly because the new GCSE has a new approach. It's called 21st Century Science.
I might become a doctor because 21st Century Science has changed my way of looking at science. I enjoy it much more than I did before.
We were looking for something different to help our girls get through science. And Sheila, the head of faculty, was really enthusiastic about the idea of a pilot. She believed and persuaded me that this was a science course with a difference, that it could actually deliver to all our girls, and there was an inclusivity about that which I liked.
We needed a new GCSE to meet the needs of all the students in the school, whether they were going to be scientists or whether they were going to use science in their job or whether they were never going to study science again.
In 21st Century Science, there are 3 GCSE courses designed to meet the interests of different students: Core, Applied and General. Core is taken by all students. Applied and General are alternative additional subjects. The most innovative part of the project is the Core course, which covers both the major science explanations and the skills required to make judgments about science.
In the previous lessons, we've been talking about ethics quite a bit. What is ethics?
In this lesson, Judy Nell is taking a core module called You and Your Genes with Year 10.
Just by a show of hands, who would like to be able to choose whether they have a boy or a girl? Who would like to be able to choose if you can have a boy or a girl? One. Okay. There are several groups that... The lesson I'm going to be doing is on PGD, which is a pre-implantation genetic diagnosis. So it's a type of genetic screening. They're doing all kinds of genetic modifications, screening and testing. So it's concentrating on a very controversial subject, replacing faulty genes with normal genes.
Judy Nell has a background in teaching drama, but she's comfortable with the new Science GCSE because it encourages role play. The 21st Century Science approach to genetics is to teach the science and then debate it.
They learn the basics of genetics, but it wouldn't be introduced by itself. It'll be introduced in relation to a disease. For example, if you're doing dominant and recessive alleles as part of the genes, we will relate that to cystic fibrosis, which is a recessive disease, and then Huntington's disease, which is a dominant disease. So then they actually see it in action. So it's not just big letters and small letters, it's related to a particular disease.
In a way, yeah, because when you look at it, yeah, if you always kill it, if you always have to kill your baby because you don't want a child with a disease, yeah, that is just more worse. So it's better to get a test done, so it saves you doing that. So put that as a yes.
The students will be taking roles as members of the HFEA, and then they will be assigned 4 different case studies, and as that group of professionals, the students must then decide which one of those cases deserves the treatment more than the other and give reasons. This is part of the sort of the ethical issues that are discussed all the way through the 21st Century Science. A lot of emphasis is placed on ethics. What we're going to do is go over each case, just give a brief summary, tell me the group decision and why, and then the set of rules that you've come up with.
We chose case number 2,
where there's a couple whose son has a non-inherited blood type disorder, and they applied to the HFE, applied to us for tissue typing to find a match for them, and we said no because they don't really need it because it's non-inherited, so they don't need to test for anything.
Girl instead of a fourth son, and that we said no to that because parents shouldn't be allowed to choose what sex their baby is, and they should just go through it naturally and be happy with what they get.
Very, very nice. And just give me one rule that you think is very important for that particular committee.
Treatment should not be made to choose the sex of the baby for unnecessary reasons, and treatment should not be made if you're choosing like the baby's features like eyes and what colour hair and things like that.
Okay, very good.
Generally, the whole course, I feel, that is the way science is actually be taught, because it's like, here's a fact and here is how it cooperates with real life.
At Haggerston School, of the 180 girls doing core, 120 have chosen applied science as their additional GCSE. In applied, the students are looking at a much narrower field of science, but from the point of view of a practitioner, such as fitness instructor or environmental health officer. The course is aimed at all ability students, not the least able, as in many similar courses before. In this applied lesson, Paula Drew is teaching scientific detection to Year 11.
So today what we're going to do is we're going to extract our DNA from our cheek cells. But if I was going to take a cell from any other part of your body, would it have the same DNA in it? Yeah, it would. So it doesn't matter where you extract it from, it's going to have the same DNA. At the moment, we're doing a unit called Scientific Detection, and it's part of the applied unit. So it's very important that they understand the role of DNA and the role of a forensic scientist. So it's a strong link. It links into that sort of part of the unit. Okay, gently scrape the cells from the inside of your right cheek, and you're going to collect as much material as possible. Turn the brush around like that, look. Okay, turn it around. That's good. Now once I've put one drop of protease into your little tube, you then shake it 5 times, so give it a nice little shake. Make sure your initials are on there for me.
The applied is very different in that it involves a lot of different types of technical, practical work that the students would do, and some of that is and related to a work context, so it does have a vocational element to it. For example, in life care we're looking at the health service and fitness training and the type of equipment that people would use, and that is taking it outside of previous GCSE courses. Some equipment that I would have never used until A-level previously.
So the alcohol's been on ice, so it's very cold. So what you're going to do is you're going to use your pipette, put it in, squeeze it and release it. So you're going to fill it with alcohol. Look at the picture. Right, so I'm going to come round, squeeze. You tilt it at a 45-degree angle. So everybody tilt it from the angle. Excellent. Put it back in your beakers, but don't disturb it. Let it settle. Right, and you should start to see your strands of DNA. The little white things, yes, excellent. So this is your DNA. You're going to pipette very slowly as much of your DNA up as possible, but with only a small amount of alcohol. You're doing really well today. I'm really pleased with you. Okay, once you've put your DNA into your little glass jar, put the lid back on and just hold it there for 1 moment. So press it down. Inside your little containers is your DNA strands, and that DNA is unique to you, so no other person is going to have the same DNA as you. Do you like your chains? Yeah. Yes. Very good. And you can wear them with pride.
Basically, it's really fun and it has more practical, whereas the core, it hasn't got really much practicals.
"60 of the girls at Haggerston have chosen general science as their additional option. The general course is again aimed at all abilities, but for those students who are interested in science as an academic pursuit. In this class, John Gurney is teaching Year 11 modelling of electric circuits.
I am looking for... I'll do it in black. Hours. I can see two parts here. That part, kilowatt, is a measure of kilowatts.
The general course has a much more traditional approach than core and applied, but also a more rigorous look at many aspects of science theory than the previous double science GCSE.
What we're looking for is the rate of transference of energy. Nearly. I tell you what, let's try and say every single keyword we've had from this topic till in the end we get it. I tell you what, it ain't current and it isn't voltage. Watts. Oh, you're desperate to say it, but you don't want to shout out. Go on.
Power.
A bit louder.
Power.
Louder than that.
Power.
What did she say, Geraldine? I always try and explain to them physics as it's what's going on in the world and how do we put numbers on it. And they've done the what's going on in the world, and that lesson hopefully was getting towards and how do we put numbers on that so we really know what's going on and thus we can sort of predict more. What's that say? What's this say on it, Danielle?
It says 2 times 32 what?
All right, bingo beats. There we go. Are we vaguely happy with that?
Yeah.
You don't feel how I'm not getting waves of love at the moment. Are you happy about that? Yeah? Are you sure? Right.
Well, it's interesting and it consolidates everything we've had to learn before we've had to learn it and then sit one big exam on it, and it's much easier this way. It's less stressful because you know you're only going to be tested on what's in your book at any one point in time, which makes it easier on everyone.
"21st century science is making a difference to our girls' learning. It's showing in data, but it's also showing in motivation and attendance in lessons and in their talk about science. Science is an in subject now."
Before, in Key Stage 3, it used to be like, you know, here's the answer to the question, here's what you should know and how you should answer it in the exam. But now it's just challenging the way you think, both in core and the additional subject, be it general or applied. It's actually getting you to think about how it relates to your life.
It's been a lot of work for the technicians, but I think it's worth it in the long run, and I think probably, even though they may say it's a lot of work, or the people in the department might say it's a lot of work, I think they're pleased they've done it too.
When I was in year 7, 8 and 9, I was doing really bad in science because it wasn't something that appealed to me. It wasn't interesting. I didn't want to listen to any of it because it was boring. But now I think I'm doing a lot better.
I personally don't like applied being called a science GCSE. I don't mind it being done, I just think it should be called something else. I don't think it's a science GCSE. Having said that, I couldn't work at a school that didn't do this course now.